All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pat Flynn Show here with Dan John once again for our weekly conversation, something I greatly look forward to. Dan, fill us in. How has your training been this week? What's new on the lifting front?
Well, I'll be lifting in a weightlifting meet on December 5th. We all set that up yesterday, which will be kind of fun. The US, is it USWA or USAW is making life difficult for us masters lifters and our people who've been around a while. They want a lot of money. Our old club, we're struggling to, it's basically a couple volunteer coaches and a bunch of kids. Hercules Barbell Club, and they're making life difficult. They want these corporate teams, I guess.
Huh? Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to donate all the money, but it's like, and for what? But I'm excited. I'll be back on the platform, snatching and clean and jerking, and hopefully not embarrassing myself too much. Those numbers aren't what they used to be.
I have a feeling you'll do just fine, Dan. It's just a hunch.
Yeah, and so that's exciting. So that means, of course, now I'll be doing an easy strength approach to it. Lots of squat snatches, lots of squat clean and jerks. Nothing too heavy, just the movement's the most important. I mean, I don't have the engine I used to have, but I still got a pretty good engine. So, as long as I don't get the mistake I made in the past, past probably 30, is I used to get injured in training all the time because I was trying to train like I did when I was 18 and 19. And that took a long time to break, Patrick, I tell you. It's more than just ego. It's relative knowledge.
Right.
You don't know what it feels like to be 35 until you've kind of been there. And the only way I know how to get to 35 statistically is to live 34 years.
And then another year.
And then another year. Exactly. Oh, so you knew this already. Oh, okay.
Did some research. Yeah.
And we probably have a few listeners, pardon me about my voice. We probably have a few listeners out there going, I have no idea what he's talking about. And a few other listeners like, yeah, one day I walked up to my mirror and my dad was looking at me. It's just, it just seems to happen. And, so one of the things we're not good at in the field of training right now is training I'd say the post 25-year-old athlete. We're not very good. I buy anything that, training for masters, and I'll look at the programs they come up with, and it's just like, it's the exact same program you'd give a 14-year-old, except, take your time warming up. You trust me, when you're 35, you know how to warm up. So it'll be exciting for me. I'll be nervous as always. That's going well. Over there at Dan John University, maybe today, we've come up with the fat loss workout generator based on all that stuff I've been telling you about. Here's something I've picked up on Patrick. One of the things that gets people's heart rates up and down, up in the weight room, is going up and down off the ground. Right. So we put together a program where you'll do a hypertrophy movement like standing press, followed by an original strength movement, Tim Anderson stuff, like prone neck nods. Mm-hmm. Well, not only is the 3 sets of 8 and the press gets you tired, but getting up and down off the ground gets that heart rate going. And I've always thought that mixing mobility with hypertrophy work is the golden key for most people with, getting right back where I was with the issues of aging. And then if you do that workout, you push, pull, hinge, squat, and then almost instantly walk out the door for half an hour, or ruck or hike or bicycle or row or whatever you have. For half an hour, 45 minutes. Personally, I like walking because it's not so damn dull. And I think that's if there is a secret, I think it's mixing hypertrophy with mobility with that walk after, for most people, for their fat loss goals. Now,
yeah, and what I love about that, sorry, is that my echo there? Okay, no, it's gone. What I love about that is we know as we age too how important it is to hold on to the lean muscle tissue. Mm-hmm. And kind of training on the different ends of the spectrum there. You have the more intense, demanding, demanding in the sense of really making the muscles work, hypertrophy work.
Right.
That's hugely beneficial. But we also know the low intensity cardio efforts like the extended walking, the hiking, the rucking it just feels good and is good for you. It's good for your heart health. It's good for your stress. So
Right.
that to me not only seems like a brilliant combination just for fat loss, but any type of longevity goal, which I mean, who doesn't have that, whether they admit it or not? It just
Well,
seems like a very reasonable framework. Yeah, I love it.
the reason I like you brought that up, Pat, is, when I do workshops, I always break it up into, these are health related things. These are fitness related things. So health, flossing your teeth is health, annual checkups, knowing your blood pressure, knowing your cholesterol, all those things, love them or hate them. Fitness, ability to a task. Longevity is both the quantitative and qualitative issue of aging. And finally, there's the thing that I do called performance, where on December 5th, someone's going to say my name and I'm going to walk up on a platform. I'll be the only lifter lifting. Everyone in the place will know if I made it or not. That's performance. That's radically different than doing some hard workout in my gym. But the hand always goes up at the end of that, Patrick, and someone says, well, what about, they say weight loss, but what they mean is fat loss. Mm-hmm. And that kind of is in what I do for a living is always the issue. And we all hate the statement, but Art Devaney got it right when the woman asked, how do you lose fat? And he said, don't get fat in the first place. Mm-hmm. And that's a tough life lesson. If any of our listeners are going, yeah, thanks, Art. Yeah, that's what a lot of people say. But the nice thing you can do with that, gentle listener, is think about your own children and their, what you're feeding them, how you're rewarding them, what are they doing for their own health, fitness, and longevity.
Oh, absolutely. So, I'm one of those people who did get fat in the first place, and it's very difficult. And I think there's a hidden benefit there for me as a coach, because I think I can sympathize and empathize, maybe in a way that people who haven't been through the weight loss struggle have. So there's kind of a blessing in disguise, but it really is a struggle. And I was never taught good nutritional habits growing up. I was allowed to eat virtually whatever I wanted. We used to have a cabinet in our house that my friends would call the cabinet of diabetes, because it was just, yeah, right. So everybody always wanted to come to my house growing up, because we had just a plethora of just tasty treats that there was no limit to. So yeah, to your point, Dan, I do not want that to be the case with my children.
Exactly.
Of course, we don't lock it down. Of course, we let them enjoy themselves a reasonable amount, but we really want to teach them what healthy eating is, because nature, nurture. There definitely is a strong streak of obesity in my family as well. So I think Art's advice is, in one sense, yeah, okay, that's kind of frustrating if you did get fat in the first place like I did, but there's a deeper lesson there. Is it's not just about us, right? We relate to other people. So yeah, I think that's very salient. Mm-hmm.
And I like that, Patrick, because I like where you're heading here with your children right now, with Ronan and the gang, Cool and the gang, Ronan and the gang.
And the gang is right.
This is the time that you should be teaching them, like, for example, the importance of, well, obviously something simple as vegetables, something as simple as trying things like, I hate to be but the fermented foods and real yogurts, real sauerkraut, the idea that vegetables are just a normal part of eating.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. They're not tossed in for their health benefits. It is the base of what you should eat.
It's just what you get. Mm-hmm.
When you're thirsty, you drink water. You don't buy a $3 sugar drink that has a sports athlete on the cover.
Oh, it's funny. Roan went to an archery thing the other day. It was a camp, and he was so confused because he's like, "Mom, Dad, the only thing they had to drink there was soda, and I didn't know what to drink."
Well, that's actually kind of a nice thing to hear.
Right. Uh-huh. Yeah. So I'd be like, he legitimately seemed to have his own hesitation. Of course, we're like, yeah, we're glad you enjoyed yourself. It's not something, but like, we don't have soda in the house. It's just not a thing, right?
Yeah. We don't.
It just isn't here, right?
When people want mixed drinks, they bring the mixer to our house. It's just I gave up soda drinks, and it depends on where you live in the country. Coke, soda pop. I gave those up for Lent in 8th grade. And the cool thing about that was I never went back to them. It's interesting. Outside of the religious tradition, something like Lent, I think, is a brilliant idea. Yearly, we're all going to agree to, let's take a 40-day period, 40 days-ish, and let's try to become better people. So find one small thing that you can improve on. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And by the way, and I'm not trying to be stuffy or anything, I'm just saying that it's not a bad idea to do it with a group.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
I stopped giving up things for Lent a long time ago and try to be more proactive and do things. But I still think the value of a communal, hey, I'm not doing this for a while. And if I break the rules, I will be punished with a lightning bolt across the forehead.
Yeah. Real skin in the game. I like that, Dan.
Yeah.
And no, I'm with you. I gave up later than you. I gave up soda, which was my primary drink. It scares me now to think about how much soda I used to drink growing up. Like that was my primary drink, like not water, right? Not juice. It was soda. So I gave it up kind of mid to late high school, but same thing. It was one of those instances where I just never really went back to it or felt the need to go back to it. But it was a huge benefit to me. I mean, it was one of those small things that made a major difference, not just in my weight and body composition, but also importantly, my dental health. I haven't really had any cavities since giving up a lot of that. Crap,
that's kind of nice to hear. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's very nice. What a side benefit. And, that's one of the reasons when in my 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, number 2 is if you weigh over 300 pounds, 135 kilos, basically, I ask you to go see an eye doctor, a dentist, and then a medical doctor. And the reason the dentist is so important, I have rarely worked with somebody who's been over 300 pounds that didn't have serious dental issues. And so my advice is going to be to them, Patrick, I'm going to say, you need to eat more vegetables. And they literally can't chew sometimes as well. Or they got a side of their mouth they have to avoid. Well, that, to me, that needs to be dealt with, rectified, fixed. And it's interesting how I think we kind of circle around these same exact points, and the entry point just seems to be the difference. We're talking about giving up soda, and then you mentioned dental health, and then the dental health led me right back to my assessment and dealing with people who weigh over 300 pounds. It's fascinating how we seem to loop around these same things. I think, quality of sleep, dental care, drinking water, eating vegetables. Those, I mean, I'd hate to even call them foundational. They're like they're before the foundation, right. They're pre-foundational things. Mm-hmm. And yet so often those are the things that I'm lecturing and teaching on.
Yeah. It brings me back to a saying that big doors often swing on little hinges. And I can think back to that might be a Nightingale quote. I forget where that came from.
Would you mind making that the title of today's?
Big doors swing on little hinges. If not Nightingale, maybe a Carnegie or something. It's one of those guys, right?
Or something.
Yeah. And for me, you move along, you refine things, you become more precise. But starting out, that was how it was for me. It was just kicking a few little things that made a very big difference. That improved my health. I wasn't doing everything perfectly. I was still making lots of mistakes, stumbling backwards fairly frequently. But it was those little things like kicking soda, getting, for me back then, it was a mixture of haphazard weightlifting and cycling was my cardio, right? So not perfect by any means, but
not bad.
Yeah, but not bad either. But little things that made a big difference that weren't earth shattering, that weren't completely impossible either, but gave me the momentum and confidence that I needed to continue forward and continue refining things. So I think that's kind of why it's important for us to keep circling back around these points, because those are the little hinges, if you will.
You make a good point. You said you were doing this haphazard lifting. You'd given up soda and you were riding your bike. And we both said, well, that's not bad. honest to God, not bad is so far superior than the alternative.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like that. Very often I'll meet someone on a life-changing journey, and let's say they'll be 3 years into it, where they've competed in a bodybuilding contest. Okay. And then I'll ask them about the turning points. What was going on 3 years ago? And the one woman I remember, she was having issues with her husband and went to the gym and started doing all this stuff. But it was interesting when she started talking about those first couple of months, the transitional time. What she was doing was really better than not bad, trending toward pretty good. And now she's, of course, she's getting tanning bed 5 days a week, and,
right.
And all this other stuff, her hair extensions and her eyelash, But when the transition happened, all she had really done is, I started drinking more water, I started exercising, I started trying to eat better. No, that's not bad. Oh yeah, and not bad led to a physique contest.
Yeah. Same thing. I remember one of my early clients when I was just training some people in high school. I mean, she ended up losing over 100 pounds. And what did she do? It was a few little things that we sat down and talked about. Instead of the waffle line at the cafeteria, she got in the omelet line. She came to my kettlebell classes, and we just started her off on some deadlifts and some basic presses. And, just consistently showed up, consistently made those little tweaks. And boom, that now she is legitimately a trainer and a fitness professional, right? So another example where a few small things led to a huge difference. And now she's certainly doing things that she wasn't back then, and she might be more precise, more refined. But as you say, the transitional time was not bad, right? It was not bad. Mm-hmm.
I'm watching my grandson Danny read the first Harry Potter book. He's in the second grade, and the first Harry Potter book is clearly way above second grade reading level. But to watch him pound, I mean, literally there's times where it comes to words where he's trying to phonetically knock it out and he can't. He doesn't understand an idiom, so he needs help. But watching him struggle through the books, by the way, he picks it up the next day and keeps going. And he picks it up the next day and keeps going. Here's the funny thing. In probably 3 or 4 years, he's going to go back and reread that book, and he's going to have another level of joy from the book. But I think there's value in this image I'm trying to portray. It's okay in the beginning when Dan John said to eat sauerkraut, I took a bite and I wanted to vomit. Well, that's okay. And then 3 years later, you'd be like, well, I only like artisanal sauerkraut with just a hint of ginger. Because it's a process. And sometimes when you start when I tell people to add vegetables to their meals, at first they look at you like, where the hell am I going to get vegetables? Well, okay, there's a thing called a store this is what I do. Now I have these jars I probably have 7 or 8 different kinds of pickled veggies, like onions and zucchini, which is outstanding, by the way. I have fermented pickles, which is an interesting thing. And I made my own fermented carrots. So I hope you heard what I just said. I'm just dropping those into my breakfast. Mm-hmm. I'm just opening a jar and throwing 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 in there. But when I first tell that to somebody, they look at you literally like you're from another planet.
Right.
And then a year later, that's like they're taking kale and making a smoothie with lime or lemon. It's like, ugh. But okay, But it is a process. It's just like learning to read or do mathematics. It's step by step. And the weird thing is, you will look back on learning to add and subtract and say, God, that was so simple.
Right.
But when you're in the middle of it, it was the most difficult thing in your universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It always helps to have that perspective. Not to switch gears too abruptly here, Dan, but I was reading one of your excellent books again this time. And by the way, people, good listeners, Dan John does not at all have me promote his books on this podcast. I do it because I think they're excellent and worth recommending. But your wonderful book called Now What? The Ongoing Pursuit of Improved Performance.
Okay.
And I was going through it and you have this awesome template in here called the throwers template. And I couldn't help but think, I want to talk to Dan about this because I think this is just a great template for probably almost everybody. And just real quick, I don't expect authors to have everything in all their books off the top of their mind. I certainly don't for my books, but you have Turkish get-ups, bear crawls, and general easy mobility work. Slow power work, you give the examples of deadlifts and bench press. Easy dynamic stretching work, an Olympic lift or two, hill sprints, sled work, or regular sprints.
Right.
And I said, look, I don't train throwers. I'm sure this is phenomenal for them, but that just sounds like an awesome general template. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the background of that and how we might be able to offer something like this to the gentle listener.
Well, the first thing is, the best place to learn this is from Jurassic Park. I think Michael Crichton does a great job with the term fractals. And what I do when I coach somebody is one of the first things I try to do is get a sense of what they need to do in their performance. Like if you're coaching rugby, they got those 2 40-minute halves. You're going to have to coach a rugby team a lot different than you're going to teach. I mean, and this isn't obvious, right? Than a wrestler who goes, when I wrestled, it was 3 rounds of 3 minutes apiece. When you stand back and you just look at what's being asked of you, that's the first thing that shapes it. And what you do then is, so what fractals mean is this: if you look at a leaf, it sort of kind of looks like a tree. And if you look at a rock, a small rock, it sort of kind of looks like a mountain. Right. So that's those repeating sequences.
Right. Patterns that reoccur at smaller and smaller scales, for example. Right. Yep.
Thank you. And so when I look at it, so let's go to the typical person. You start off, you don't move around very much. And then you kind of crawl, you get up on one knee, you come back down. You have this balloon period where, and then you get back on one knee, and then you end up crawling, and then you end up with a very long rest period. Okay. That's the typical life. Okay. So when I train normal people, I never have finishers at the end of the workout. My finisher, that hard part, is in the middle. So if I'm going to train a normal person, just an everybody, we come in, we might do some original strength on the ground, some half kneeling work, then have something like the humane burpee in the middle of the workout. And then after the humane burpee, we might do some corrective work because now they're ready to do mobility and flexibility work. And then maybe we do some rolls. And then to prepare them to get back on the freeway, maybe some breathing drills like crocodile breathing or just savasana, where you lay on your back and you breathe. Can you see how the model of life is also repeated in the model of the workout?
Right.
When you train throwers, you want a thrower to last throw, best throw. Mm-hmm. So when you first come in, and then there's this kind of interesting so in throwing, speed builds up and then everything gets quiet for just moments. And you have to learn to embrace that quiet moment. That's when all the other forces, centrifugal and centripetal forces, are all building up. And you have to be the eye of the storm. Little Danny has to allow all those forces to build up. And then we strike, we hit, we throw. Okay. So there's this kind of like tiny little up and then a huge finish. Okay. So when you're training the thrower, you come in, you do some gentle, easy stuff. You do that. Okay. Then you have that first minor peak with the deadlift and bench press. And then you might do the mobility work after, which is great because you're getting ready for the Olympic lifts or the hill sprints. And then you finish the workout with that high hill sprints, the snatch, the clean and jerk. And your last lift is your best lift. And then, because that's how it feels in the discus ring and at a track meet and at a season and at a career. I would love it if your last throw of your career was your best throw. I would love it if the last throw of every season was your best throw of the season. I would love it if the last throw of every meet was your best throw.
Right. You have a quote here: great coaches focus on seeing the patterns and the problems early. Great coaching sees the big picture, and that is elite performance. What an important insight that is. And I love this idea of the sort of fractal nature of training, right? The patterns that we might see in performance occur or manifest themselves, or should, in the way that we train. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good stuff.
So, and when you look at the way I teach, like a normal person, and you have savasana at the end, you might say, well, Dan, you're talking about their death. Well, statistically, all of us are going to die. Statistically, okay.
And all of us are going to drink water. I'm not saying that, one leads to the other, but it does seem suspicious.
Water leads to death. I see a 1.1 1-to-1 correlation there.
Right.
So, but the thing is, I want a typical normal person to actually be able to get in the car, call their spouse, find out where they need to pick up the kids. Oh, I forgot, I've got to get whole milk and rutabagas at the store. They have to be able to go back into the real world, almost within seconds of finishing the last movement. So for me, I want my people to leave the gym calm. I do want them to have a hard burst in the middle of the workout. But after that hard burst, I want to do all that corrective work that they probably need more than the cardio work. They getting the spinal column to move correctly, getting the hips and shoulders to be nice and loose and flexible where they need to be. That's probably as important as that sweaty mess we just made them.
Right.
So that's how I program and plan a typical normal person's training. And here's the mistake a lot of people make, Patrick, and I think I talk about it in Now What, is that what the tools we learn in performance sports are really helpful for normal people. And some of the insights we get from normal people really make a difference in performance sports. So the two of them talk across a veil, okay? But you got to be very careful about taking everything performance sports does and shoving it into what you should do with a 72-year-old grandmother or great-grandmother. You got to be very careful. So yes, some of the tools and lessons of performance sports, they really help the everybody else client, the general population. And sometimes when you're working with general population, you go, oh, how simple is this? And then the goblet squat. You take the goblet squat and you bring it over into a professional weight room, and people are like, oh my God, this is a game changer. So, which is interesting, by the way, very often my best regressions come from working with the general population, and they are gold for performance athletics.
What would be an example of one of those, Dan?
The hip flexor stretch stuff. I have a new YouTube on it. If people are questioning how I do it, just go to my YouTube and it'll be right there. The goblet squat, and the hip flexor stretch. Those would be the two big game changers. Okay. Here's another one, one arm pressing. I was never a huge fan of single arm pressing until I started working with people, normal people. And every time you try to do two arms, especially with men, they had a side that, they didn't look real good, and they had another side that could press the mountain, so you had to you can't do military presses with somebody who can't straighten out one arm. So those would be and by the way, if all you did was one arm presses, goblet squats, and hip flexor stretches, it's pretty good.
Not bad, as we've been saying. Not bad, right? And then hit a walk. Very good. Awesome. Good stuff. Well, is that bundle package deal still available for your books, Dan? If so, I want to make sure we point people in the direction again.
Oh yeah. The bundles are amazing. The nice thing about, I'm not selling my books, folks, but this thing about buying bundles, the upside is when you're working with inventory, pulling two books out is no more work than pulling one out. And that's why the discounts happen. That's what I was told.
Right. It makes sense to me. And again, this is a great book. Now What is awesome. I mean, people just look at the table of contents. I think any one of these chapters is going to excite them. I always love what you put in the appendix section. You always have great appendices, Dan, of just lots of real cool. Like in this one, you have the Litvinov workout. You've got armor building. You've got shark habits, pirate maps for time management. Just really good stuff.
Well, and a lot of people knock me on that, but I like a book to flow. So if you are a reader who's already read my work, which is very, very common, when I say Litvinov, you know what I'm talking about. And so we'll just keep walking ahead. But we have new readers who don't. So I stick the entire piece in the appendices so that a new reader has those resources.
Right.
And I actually get criticized for that. In fact, I think a good book would be the appendices, just a whole collection of, all the 10,000 swing challenge workouts, the Litvinovs, all the stuff I use on a typical day. And they are long-winded. When I explain a program, I like to make sure you understand the problem and the history of why we came up with it. Because I think that'll actually help you understand if you need to use it or not.
I agree. Yeah, no, I think it's a great format. I mean, that's just the nature of writing books, right? You're going to have to pick a format, and no matter what format you pick, there's going to be people who like that format and don't like that format.
Yeah.
And
someone asked me the other day about why I don't write for human kinetics. And this is not a rip on the company, folks. But I don't like the way human kinetics books. It is a very cut and paste. You're about to see a box because you've turned the page. Human kinetics has a very stylized method of writing books, whether it's about strength training or coaching track and field. And that's fine for what they do. I don't like it. You do the For Dummies book, and they have their little format.
They certainly do. Mm-hmm.
I can't remember. Dragon Door back in the day used to do the thumbs up and thumbs down thing with the huge picture on a page with a thumbs up and the huge picture on the other page with a thumbs down, which, it cuts back in the amount of writing you need to do. And I think many people, like my friend John Powell, loves those books because he's such a visual learner. And my books have no pictures, and I made that decision back in 2006 because I saw the rise of electronic and Kindle books. And in those books, pictures come off terribly. Charts are horrible, pictures are worse.
Right.
And I figured we would only have ebooks by now, which is interesting because I was absolutely wrong. For about 10 years, everyone liked ebooks. And then suddenly everyone woke up and said, I hate them.
I hate them. I hate them. I do. I mean, I'll read them begrudgingly sometimes, but I much prefer my paper. Mm-hmm.
My retention on an ebook is almost zero. It's almost laughable how bad my retention is on an ebook. I have read there's a great little murder mystery series called The Cat Who by Lilith Jackson Brown. And when I was young, I mean, 10 or 11 is when I first read the first three. And then she stopped writing and she took the fourth and the series started. Well, when I read them in a book, it's like I'm back and there's Coco and Yum Yum, and I'm back in this house, and I'm walking the neighborhood and I'm getting coffee. When I read them on a Kindle, I'm like, and I turn the page and it's like, what just happened? Yeah. Now that could be me, but
I don't know. It seems to be a fairly common experience, at least for people who are fairly avid readers, I've noticed.
Bibliophiles, if you will.
Indeed. Yes. I hate it. I mean, part of it is just I'm already looking at a screen for enough of the day that's the last thing I want to do is get in front of another electronic device. But, I think you should wrestle with your books. I mean, Mortimer J. Adler, How to Read a Book, right? It's like it should look like you have been in an Olympic wrestling match when you really engage with the book, right?
Well, and I can say that from my work with The Sword and the Stone. I mean, how many readings did it take me of The Sword and the Stone to find what I call the saddest line in history? I never picked up on it, and it was right there on the page. But yeah, it's the job. It's the job of the reader to work around. I do wish people would read my books more. Well, I'd say slowly, but there are some stuff in my books that there'll be a line or two. Larry got on me one time because I think it's intervention. One chapter is a sentence. And she didn't want me to do it. I was like, no, I want this. This sentence is really important.
So we're going to make a whole chapter out of it. No, I remember that. That's absolutely fantastic, I thought. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
but it's
One other thing I got to tell you, kind of a fun story.
Yep.
So, Dick Knopmeyer's my coach, and he calls me up. We talk at least once a month. And he calls me up the other day. I'm at breakfast with Mike Brown. And he goes, Danny? I go, yeah. Can I talk to you for a minute? Well, when your 89-year-old coach calls you up and says, Danny, can I talk to you a moment? Everything gets dropped. You go quiet place. You hunker down. You get ready to cry. Well, he goes, I've got all these T-shirts from the Olympics, and I've got all these old books and stuff. Would you like them? And I'm like, Dick, we have to practice on how you start a conversation with me.
Yeah, how you lead in there. That's hilarious.
And just to let everybody know, Dick's doing fine. He's 89, still working out.
Good.
Life is good. It's funny. He'll tell me things. When I focused on eating right when I was young, I think it helped out. I mean, I know other people my age and they can't even get around. And I'm like, yeah, Dick, I think
it did.
This was a good idea.
Oh, that's great. Love it. Awesome, Dan. Fantastic insights. We'll link to the bundle deal. Again, I will continually encourage if people grab your books and wrestle with them. Underline, highlight, dog ear, ask questions, engage with the text. I know I've recommended it a million times, but Mortimer Adler's book, How to Read a Book, is just
great book.
Essential reading as far as I'm concerned.
I read it when I was probably 11 or 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me it was high school, and that was one of those little hinges, right?
And here's the funny thing: if you watch Rosemary's Baby, it's in the shelf behind their bed.
Oh, is it really? That's funny.
Yeah, it's just like one of those weird things. Now, of course, you'd have to go watch Rosemary's Baby, which I cannot recommend on a dark night. So,
right, there we go. Shall we turn to a few questions?
I would love it.
All right, let me pull the old document here. Where did I put it? All right, here we go. First one comes from gentle listener Steve. He wants to know, what would your gentleman's advice be for someone transitioning from using mostly barbells in the gym to working out at home with exclusively kettlebells for maintaining as much strength and muscle as possible? Okay, so someone's going from barbells in the gym to kettlebells at home. What do we have for him, Dan?
Well, I think the mistake you're going to make, Steve, is you're going to be careful on this either or, that barbells build strength and kettlebells build whatever you're thinking. You remember, being strong is that conversation between load, reps, sets, and probably recovery. Okay. So you can do a lot with kettlebells, obviously. And then, by the way, if all you had was a 25-pound dumbbell, that was it, we could probably improve you too, if you had the academic rigor and focus and energy to say, listen, this is what I got and I'm going to make a difference. So the one thing about kettlebell workouts is they are the master of density training, which is same amount of work in less time. So one thing you might want to think about, Steve, is maybe put together a series of clear workouts. Like I've got the one called the Humane Burpee. That's the one that goes 15 swings, 5 goblet squats, 5 push-ups. It's in the video, 15-4-4, 15-3-3. And then say, okay, the first time it takes you 7 minutes to do it. The second time it takes you 6 minutes. Well, you can see you're trending. Your condition is trending in the right direction. If you do something like, I don't know what your kettlebell weights are, but I don't know, maybe someday this is a workout I like a lot. You can do a single or double kettlebells, presses, a set of 2, a set of 3, a set of 5, a set of 10. That's 20 reps. It's fun sometimes to do that 5 times. That's 100 reps, which is a lot of reps. But pick something as simple as 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10, 2, 3, 5, 10, and time yourself on that, and just see. Okay, the first time it took me, 20 minutes. And boy, was I pumped for the rest of the day. The next time it took me 18 minutes and I was pumped for the next 3 days. I personally think density is the best way to be a home trainer if you're worried about strength. Yeah. So more work, less time, same work, less time.
Yeah. I know we've talked about this before, Dan, but I think it's worth repeating. kettlebells, they cover a lot. You can definitely check a lot of boxes, but it sounds like our gentle listener here is just looking for minimal equipment investment and efficiency. And certainly that is very cool and admirable. But is there anything else where you would say, if you're going to add one other thing in, one other tool, one other
To the kettlebell?
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe this. I wouldn't have believed this years ago, but a suspension trainer.
Okay.
Because the suspension trainer allows you to do some really nice mobility work. Mine hang from the ceiling. I got those little X's that hang on the ceiling. And then the other thing, of course, is that you can do a lot of pulls. If there's a weakness to the kettlebell, the pure pull. Yeah, I think that you get a lot of pull work in when you do heavy kettlebell swings. Counter that isometric countering of that load. And you can also do one arm rows, which I've recommended for years. But honestly, the suspension trainers are so much better for the horizontal row. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So like most anything, the kettlebells are not a perfect tool. I think they're an extremely versatile tool, but there are some gaps. And I think pulling is one of those gaps where just having, a suspension trainer, set of rings too. Rings you can get very cheap these days, a decent set of rings. And you can
honestly, if you bought a decent set of rings and just some straps, be able to adjust them. And now we're into an area I'm terrible at. So, but you can certainly do dips, you can do pull-ups, you can do everything. You're right. I should have said that. I had a pair of rings in my backyard for years. One thing, folks, they do weather. And if you weigh over 220 pounds, you better be fairly athletic if one breaks.
Yeah, they better check to make sure they are securely fastened.
You might be wondering
fastened. Yes, yeah, absolutely. But rings are nice because some of those suspension trainers can be darn expensive, but you can get a decent set of wooden rings for like $30. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well over 200. Yeah.
Yeah, and the nice thing about rings is you could do the vertical pulling with them too. I haven't played around with suspension trainers for a while, but I remember when TRX came out, that was somewhat of a limitation with them.
Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know what they can handle on load. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Though I do miss the rings because I used to do the cat under, or the skin the cat.
Get in the cat, right?
And then the vertical one, I would stand. My feet were vertical, the zenith, and I would do those weird upside down pull up attempts and spin around. That was really. I guess I actually do miss them.
And you can just do your dead hangs with the rings, as we often recommend, right?
Yeah. And the nice thing about rings is that you can twist your hands. And when you move your hands, that's when you can really explore the shoulder joint.
Yes. Yeah. So I can totally understand why somebody might not want to lug a barbell into their house. I get it. If you can, good for you. But the rings seem to me almost a no-brainer, or suspension trainers, right? Not too expensive, get a lot of mileage, and helps fill some of the gaps with kettlebell training.
Exactly.
Very good. All right.
Question.
Yes. Next one comes from gentle listener Michelle. She says, as a trainer, one of the most difficult aspects of the job is client adherence. Ain't that true? I can write effective programs, but getting people to follow through on them is another story. In fact, the first skill seems almost pointless unless we have tools for getting people to follow through. Why do you feel this aspect of coaching, whether it's psychological or whatever, is not focused on as much as programming sets and reps, et cetera? And what recommendations would you two have for helping people over the various hurdles that prevent them from sticking with the programs you design? This is a perennial question, isn't it, Dan?
Well,
Michelle, perennial question.
Michelle, I'll just say this. It happened a while ago, but I was with Sir Percival, and we went into the Grail Castle, and there was the Grail King. And right next to the Grail King was the Holy Grail. And I went over to get it, and I couldn't. In other words, what I'm saying is, well, the question you're asking is the Holy Grail question.
It is. It really is, right?
I'm not worthy. Michelle, I've written at least 2 or 3 books dealing with exactly what you're going through. And that's why I came up with the 1, 2, 3, 4 assessment, because the 3 questions, people will tell you exactly what you want to hear constantly and overwhelmingly. Okay, I'm going to give you a small toolkit in just a moment. But what you have to understand is this is what I have spent much of my career trying to do, trying to get people to realize is that what they say and what they do don't match up most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a book suggestion for you, or just go online to his website because it's a really good. The book is called Tiny Habits. Tiny Habits, and his name is it's B with no dot, J no dot, Fogg, Fogg. And what his belief is, and I've used it with several clients, and it's nothing but excellent. But you have to have some level of buy-in. Literally, the first month, you're going to have to drink just 2 glasses of water a day. I know I talk about it in my books, and I know I've talked about it on this podcast before. But what you need to do is get the person to agree to the smallest habits first, Michelle. I know you want them to eat 12 different vegetables a day, Olympic lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday, kettlebell swing daily, mobility work only Thursday. Okay, and that's what Dan John does. And I mean that. That's what I do. But to get someone from out of the couch and into that's I know Tony Robbins' work will help you a lot. Mm-hmm. But sadly, and Tony will tell you the truth, what clicks most people over into buying in isn't pleasure, it's pain. That's why people who just got divorced are so great to train. Pain is a wonderful tool. So there's your check mark. There's either tiny habits, and I would pick one for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. I'm talking about drinking 2 glasses of water a day. I'm talking about putting on your shoes. Tiny, tiny, tiny habits. And then on the other side would be the more Tony Robbins-esque kind of things with those massive changes. Right. Now, Robbins says you can do massive changes in an instant, but it only happens, I believe, if someone's coming from a place of pain. Mm-hmm. And even in a place of pain, I mean, I've watched people dying of cancers, knowing better. I'm with a guy one time. I was the last person with him. Good friend of mine. Won't go into too many details. Charlie. And Charlie just got some more bad news. And so he said, do you mind going out with me? And I look on his arm. He's got like 6 nicotine patches. And we go out on the deck. He's got oxygen going into his nose. And he pulls out a cigarette and lights it up. And I'm thinking to myself, I could die here. Because, pure oxygen and cigarettes are not a good match. Mm-hmm. But even dying and literally just hours to go, he had to light up. Mm-hmm. And he was dying of lung cancer. I mean, I'm not being a jerk or anything, Michelle. I'm just saying that it is very, very difficult, even with tons of pain, to get people to churn habits. So go online and go look up, BJ's site, Tiny Habits. And if you like it, I think his book is where you want to go. Your clients would just need the website, but you would need the toolkit from the book.
Right. I think it circles back a little bit to the whole idea of big doors swinging on little hinges too. Can you have somebody work on something that produces somewhat exciting results in a reasonable amount of time? I feel that's because you're right, Dan. I mean, there's certain situations where, I don't get it. And I've had friends and family members like that too. It's like, how much pain do you have to be in? Right. Like, I don't, and that's, those are very difficult situations. I don't have an adequate answer to a lot of those at all. I don't think anybody does, if we're being honest with ourselves. But otherwise, under, I guess somewhat more normal circumstances where somebody really does feel a certain motivation from either the pursuit of something good or the avoidance of something bad, right? And I think Tony Robbins is spot on, realizing that the more powerful motivator is probably the latter. And I think it certainly has been when we reflect on our own lives. I mean, I wanted the goodness of getting in shape when I was starting out, but I also wanted to stop being the fattest one of all of my friends. And all my friends always would point that out, right? Like that was definitely a motivator for me. But what got me going, at some point it switches, right? Because at some point you're avoiding pain, that
Right.
gets you moving, but then you start to see some victories and some wins. And what was before a very negative motivation, hopefully should change into more of a positive one. And I think that's the key. I think if you stay in just an entirely negative motivation, that can be somewhat destructive and lead to some bad outcomes psychologically. So I don't think it's wrong to harness negative motivations. I think they're there for a reason, but hopefully at some point it becomes a pursuit of a good, and precisely because it is a good. And for me, that happened when I started seeing the results. I started feeling stronger. I started feeling more confident. And I started moving out of a motivation because this was something that I experienced was very worthwhile in and of itself, aside from the fact that, I was just trying to avoid a previous pain. And that came about because I got somewhat substantial wins from not too big of changes. So all that is very, I guess, long-winded way of saying those tiny habits, if possible, find the ones that aren't going to take a huge, dramatic overhaul, but will hopefully see some substantial and exciting results early on.
Actually, what you did right there was summarize either power laws or the 80-20 rule. And so I always use the concept of a check mark. And the long tail is tiny habits. And I got to tell you from the heart, if you drink a gallon of water a day, you walk 3 miles a day, you eat vegetables at every meal, those tiny little things are going to have so much more of a massive impact than training on, the first 3 days of January, like a lot of people do. Hard. They train hard on those 3 days. So what you're saying is those tiny things start to trend in such a positive direction. Did you notice too in your transformation, you don't exactly remember when you went from.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There wasn't any one point that I can point to or think of. It's sort of a gradient, right?
Yeah.
Sort of gradual transition.
As lousy as a snowball going down the hill, getting bigger and bigger, as it doesn't always work as a metaphor, but in Utah it doesn't. The snow's too dry. But it is true. You do get this strange momentum as you move forward. But getting back to Michelle's very good question, very difficult question, momentum. And that's why I'm such a big fan of the tiny little habits, the, hey, good job. And listen, when I do my tiny habit, I clap and give myself a yes. I don't want guys to tell you what I'm doing, but every time I do this, I'm trying to change a behavior I have. And I have this little thing I do, yes. And then I tug my ear, clap my hands, and give myself a yes. It really seems to help. And I'm faking it, by the way. I know, I'm not an idiot. I know that clapping my hands and going yes doesn't have an impact, except you know what? It does. So one of the things I'd like you to do, to make sure you do, Michelle, is make sure that you applaud and have your clients applaud the minor changes. If they show up, that's a good job. That's a good job, because we are spinning that wheel on the Titanic as hard as we can.
Yes.
Now, if we could have picked a better route a month ago, that would even be better. If we could have made a better decision a week ago, that would have been better. If the moment someone said iceberg ahead, we would have made a decision, that would have been better. But now we're rubbing against the iceberg and we still have to do something. Okay.
Yes. Dan, this is so important. And it's something that I think applies to marriage. It applies to raising children, right? We all have a negativity bias. This is pretty well established in psychology, right? That we just have this almost overwhelming negativity bias. So I think it's so important when working with clients. You don't want to delude them. You certainly don't want to lie to them. That isn't helpful. And you definitely want to criticize where it matters, but you do want to remind them fairly frequently of all the progress they have made, and make sure that you are celebrating those wins. I mean, my wife and I were just talking about this with our children the other day, talking to ourselves as parents. Like, yeah, we're critical as parents. We discipline and we feel that's necessary, but we need to remember to keep reminding our kids of all the good that they're doing. And they have done a tremendous amount of good in their schooling and other stuff like that. Because we're with ourselves so well all the time, right? Because we are ourselves.
Yeah.
We just don't always appreciate the progress that we've made. Whereas if we can have somebody, bring out our charts or a before and after photos and say, hey, here's where you were 3 months ago.
Exactly.
And look at this. That itself can be really powerful and really motivating. So the point there is have your clients track, have your clients log, take the photos, all that stuff.
Can I beat this to death?
Yeah. Yeah, please do. Yeah. Hit it home.
The nice thing about sending your kids to Catholic school in Utah isn't because you're going to Catholic school in Utah. It's because they insist on uniforms.
Right.
And so what's nice is the entire community is reinforcing the uniform rule. And if you decide to fight your battles with your daughters in the 6th grade, I'm going to fight this battle of making sure they're in their khaki pants and their blue shirt. Mm-hmm. That's the battle I'm fighting. What's nice is, and this sounds insane, but I don't have to fight those other battles because we fought and won this silly little battle here. I don't have to fight and win that battle later on.
Right.
I think it's important to have bizarre lines in the sand as a parent. Mm-hmm. This is the battle we're going to fight. No TV on school nights. That was a big one for Tiff and I. Mm-hmm. Sunday through Thursday, no TV in our house. Yep. Now, of course.
By the way, I think that is a fantastic rule. We've adopted something quite similar where video games and TV are just on the weekend.
We now with iPads and phones, that would be a different. But the nice thing about fighting that battle with Kelly and Lindsay is that they both slept every night of their academic life. They didn't get involved in a whole bunch of whatever. I mean, must-see TV. Now in the summer, all they did was watch reruns of shows. I mean, I get that. They would sit around their pajamas 14 hours a day because they were middle schoolers. And that's what middle school girls do, as I understand it, because that's what happened. And they would watch reruns of TV. And I thought, that's fine. I don't mind them on a day that's ungodly hot here in Utah of them in the basement watching TV. I'm fine with that because their grades are good. They were in 30 different clubs. They were active. They were doing all this stuff. We fought the battle on Tuesday night television, and we won the war with where they are basically now.
That's great. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I love the idea of somewhat bizarre lines in the sand. I totally get it. It's something, again, if you would have told me before, parent, I probably wouldn't have understood it, but now it's something I appreciate very much, Dan.
Water only at meals.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You fight that battle. You don't have to fight a whole bunch of other ones,
Yeah. And because it's all about instilling those habits. I mean, that's the point. That's a big thing of just parenting, also coaching, right? There's many parallels here. It's like, especially as a parent, like I got to help form these kids in their habits because darn it, I don't want them to be in a situation that I was in, right? It's so much easier to not have bad habits to begin with.
It's so much easier. Yeah. I mean, what would you rather do? I tell you, breaking a bad habit, my blessed friend, Charlie, is so much easier not to get into a bad habit. Mm-hmm. Don't. And so to get back to Michelle, what we're trying to get across is try not to have a list of 500 things for your client. Try to have one smaller thing, win there, 2 weeks later, another small thing, win there, combine those 2 wins to a 3rd win, to a 4th win. Yes, it's slower, but it works.
Yeah, beautiful. Fantastic. Well, my goodness, we're already over time. I can't believe it. Another fantastic conversation. But Dan, before we wrap up, remind us again, what's happened over at Dan John University? What's coming down the pipeline?
Well, I think sometime today, the Fat Loss Workout Generator is going to be up. And it's its own unique little program for hypertrophy, mobility, and then the walk. And the nice thing is, you know, we're just saying a half hour walk after the workout, a half hour, whatever. I mean, I heavy hand, but you know, and I got to tell you, I can't believe, I mean, okay, I got a weightlifting meet coming up, and I'm more excited about this this very insightful, damn little thing.
It's
But
cool. You know, it is.
yeah,
It's cool.
and the nice thing is, folks, it does have some, I would say, research, but a lot of real hands-on time. I started adding original strength between hypertrophy movements, and I was shocked to see the jump in my heart rate.
Mm.
Shocked. There's gambling in Casablanca.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So
fantastic.
that's exciting, and life is good. I think I announced this before, but I have a third grandchild on the way.
Yes.
We're
Yeah. Congratulations again. So fantastic.
Past the 3-month period, so we're in a little bit safer waters now, and you know, it gives me a reason to go back in the gym and stay as young as I can for as long as I can.
Absolutely. Yeah. God bless you for that, Dan. That's a beautiful thing. Congratulations again. Thank you as always for these conversations. I know I get a ton out of it. I'm sure the listeners do as well. I know they do because of the feedback. So gentle listeners, if you're liking what we're doing here, again, I'll make the usual petitions. Please share this show. Please consider leaving those reviews, those positive reviews. I know they don't seem like a lot, but trust me, they do make a difference. They help bring new people into the show. So just taking 2 minutes to do that would mean a lot to myself. I would assume to Dan as well. He's giving us his time here, which is deeply appreciated. And I'll link the bundle package to Dan's books in the show notes and Dan John University. So Dan, my friend, thank you.
Thanks so much.
And
looking forward to next week already. Okay.
As always, talk to you then.
All right. Bye-bye.